So the New York Giants are finally above 500 for the first time since 2016, as you may know. Not only did they win the first game, they won the second game. They're 2-0 now. That's right, the New York Giants are undefeated. Am I excited? Damn right I am. But before you tell me, Nick, calm down, it's only 2 games. I know, I'm not getting ahead of myself and proclaiming that this team is poised for a deep playoff run. I'm aware that this team is still in a rebuilding season with the Dave Gettleman hangover still in effect. I know this team still has some glaring weaknesses, and I will talk about them in this video, as well as the good stuff. Obviously, the main good thing being the fact that this team is 2-0. However, as you see in the title, there's a big difference in the culture that this new regime is putting in place with the team. I'm already under the impression that the culture that's been developed in Buffalo is something that Brian Daboll is bringing to the New York Giants. So let's talk about it. Before we do though, if you'd like to see this video reach more people, if you could please consider dropping a like, that would really help out. And also if you could please consider subscribing and turning on the notification bell so you don't miss another video. Your support is much appreciated. Also, please get down in the comments and let me know your thoughts on the Giants' first 2 games. I'd love to hear from you guys. I'd love to interact with you guys. Anyways, so we know what a lost cause Joe Judge is, right? I think we all do. And pray for Mac Jones. The Patriots offense looks pretty bad right now, and I'm definitely not the least bit surprised if Joe Judge is the one running that offense. He's their problem now though, not ours. But I will still talk about him to prove the point that this team has a completely different culture now. Since the Giants are 2-0, I do want to address something that I completely forgot to talk about when I reacted to Joe Judge getting fired. This is definitely one of the dumbest things I've ever heard anybody say. The stupidity in this quote is impressive, to be honest. The fact that he said that the first 4 games of the season are like an extension of the preseason. Is that why your first season as a head coach, you missed the playoffs when you were 5-3 to end the season? Because you were 1-7 to start the season. But oh, it's okay because the first 4 games were an extension of the preseason, right? When it's the first 8 games of the season that made you miss the playoffs. Like, how does anybody actually say that with a straight face? But hey, this team is 2-0 now. And these 2 games absolutely do count the same as every game for the rest of the season. So now is this team not only 2-0, next week we got Dallas with no Dak Prescott, and then the Chicago Bears. 4-0 is a real possibility. Now, I don't want to guarantee anything, just to be clear, but both these games are absolutely winnable. I don't see how they're not. So right now, this team is in first place. If this is only just a dream, please don't wake me up. But hey, from what I know, it is reality. And also the fact that 3-0 and then 4-0, we gotta do this one game at a time though. Let's not get too ahead of ourselves. But like, I really just don't see how neither of these next 2 games aren't winnable. They definitely are. First game of the season, the Giants were down 13-0 at halftime. The first half, it looked like the same old offense, while the defense, even without their 2 best pass rushers in Kayvon Thibodeau and Azeez Ojulari, kept them in the game. Daniel Jones also threw an awful interception in the end zone. However, then in the second half, the offense found life, while the defense was able to keep Derrick Henry out of the end zone. And I'll talk more about the defense later. In week 2, it was very much a very similar story where the offense looked very dead in the first half, but the defense was really standing out. But also, Saquon Barkley, how about the fact that the Saquon Barkley we all knew and loved before he tore his ACL is looking like he's back. Last year, he didn't look like he had it in him anymore after multiple leg injuries, including the torn ACL. Now, he looks like he does have that explosiveness. First game of the season, 18 carries, 164 yards. That's 9.1 yards per carry. And of course, his rushing touchdown. Week 2, not as dominant, but 72 yards is still solid. And like the Entertainment Talking Sports said, we should keep in mind that the Panthers kept 8 in the box the whole time. So, of course, Saquon Barkley is not going to have as easy of a time getting going. He did get going in the second half though after a very quiet first half. But what the Entertainer Talking Sports said about how the Panthers were stacking 8 in the box throughout the game, this is a perfect example of why you need to watch the games to really know the full story, because stats alone won't tell you the whole story in any sport. Yogi Berra said it best, you can observe a lot just from watching. Of course, we know that what Saquon Barkley did in week 1 is not something you can do every week no matter what the opposing defense's strategy is. However, He's still averaging 118 rushing yards per game this year. All that said about Saquon Barkley though, I do still think that drafting Quentin Nelson with the second pick and Nick Chubb in the second round would have been smarter to actually address the offensive line like the compulsive liar that is Dave Gettleman said he would do. But I guess just whatever right now, we can enjoy the fact that Saquon Barkley looks healthy again and he's looking really good right now. Just hopefully he can continue to thrive the rest of the season. I do want to also talk about the offensive line. Now, like I said at the very beginning of this video, there are still glaring weaknesses with this team, and the offensive line is still one of them. It's particularly the interior line that's a weakness for the Giants. They gave up 5 sacks in week 1. They did better this time with 3 sacks, but still not exactly amazing. But hey, Andrew Thomas has looked solid so far. He did give up 2 pressures in this game, but hey, he is human. It's gonna happen, but he's still the least of my concerns with the offensive line so far. Feliciano and Glowinski, they're 2 offseason acquisitions. They absolutely need to do better. I was thinking when they got them, they'll be average to good, but not amazing, but they're not looking good at all right now. They definitely have to do better. But you know what else though, in their defense, it's still 2 games. We can still give them a little bit of time to get accustomed. Obviously not being a total idiot like Joe Judge in saying that the first 4 games are an extension of the preseason, but it is also a fact that it can take some time to get acclimated. Back to Andrew Thomas though, as much as I don't like Dave Gettleman, I don't think any Giants fan likes Dave Gettleman, nor should they. He absolutely deserves all the hate that he's gotten. We can also give some credit where it's due, and this is where Dave Gettleman actually did not make a terrible mistake when he drafted Andrew Thomas. Now I know I said when I broke down the absolute failure of Dave Gettleman's tenure that Tristan Wirfs made a Pro Bowl before Andrew Thomas, but you know what, I don't think that's something I'll really kill Dave Gettleman about, because Andrew Thomas looks like he will get there probably as soon as this year. The offensive line as a whole though definitely does need a lot of improvement, and even while I do believe next week against Dallas without Dak Prescott is winnable, what we just saw their pass rush do to the Bengals, sacking Joe Burrow 6 times even though their offensive line was supposedly improved, well, that's actually somewhat of a concern of mine that I have going into next week. I also want to talk about Evan Neal, since he was a first round pick for the Giants this year and he did give up those sacks to Brian Burns. But hey, Brian Burns is a good player. He made the Pro Bowl last year, had 9 sacks, and the first sack, I think that Daniel Jones held onto the ball a little too long, which is a problem he's had his whole career. And then the second time, he missed Kadarius Toney while Kadarius Toney was wide open. But you know, I'm not too concerned about Evan Neal yet. Besides, those sacks, like I said, they weren't completely his fault. Daniel Jones deserves some blame for that as well. But that doesn't mean that Evan Neal can't be better. Also, Brian Daboll really does seem so much more likable than Joe Judge, not just as a coach, but also as a person. He can show tough love and be genuine at the same time. He was able to show Daniel Jones some tough love after that really awful interception in that first game. Daniel Jones didn't sulk about it. He took it like a man, drove the ball down the field, and led the team to a game-winning drive. And you know what else? The Giants actually converted 2 out of 3 times in the red zone, something they've been horrible at in the past. Also, unlike Joe Judge, Brian Daboll does not play to lose. And he was even willing to go for it on 4th down. Hey, it worked. And that drive, not only did they score a touchdown, but they also got a 2-point conversion. Sometimes you have to take risks. I'm so glad we don't have that super conservative offense anymore. Hey, Daniel Jones throwing the ball down the field. I love this quote from Brian Daboll that he said after that game. I've been called a lot of things in my life, but I can guarantee you the one thing you'll never call me is afraid. So far, I agree with that, Brian Daboll. Or should I say Dave Balls? That's something Joe Judge cannot say about himself. He probably will anyways, because you know he is pretty full of himself. But Bad Dog said it best. Joe Judge is like a fighter who's afraid of getting hit. Brian Daboll so far has looked like the exact opposite. You could just see it on the field that these guys want to go to war for Brian Daboll. But now just hopefully Brian Daboll won't let me down, because I'll have to admit, there was a time when I actually believed in Joe Judge, and last year, yeah, he sure did make me look stupid for believing in him, but hey, it happens. I was wrong when I believed in Joe Judge, and I realized that as early as the first game of the season when he challenged a scoring play. I'm pretty sure of it that Brian Daboll at least will not call back-to-back quarterback sneaks. Sure, he hasn't been a perfect play caller, but you're not going to be so bad that you're going to call back-to-back quarterback sneaks, right? At least he's not super conservative like Joe Judge though, and he is willing to take risks. I also want to get back to the defense. I said I'll talk about them later on, and here I am talking about that now, and they're perhaps the main reason why this team is 2-0 so far. This offense outside of Saquon Barkley hasn't been all that, but the defense sure has. You know who really stood out in week 2? A guy we haven't been able to stand and was a part of the mess that Dave Gettleman created, Oshane Ximines. He's really stepped it up with the absence of Kayvon Thibodeau and Azeez Ojulari, and also Leonard Williams getting injured during this game. I can't wait to see what this defense does when Kayvon Thibodeau, Azeez Ojulari, Leonard Williams are back. I'm not sure of the severity of Leonard Williams' injury is yet, but just when this team is healthy, I just really can't wait to see what they do. The fact that they've been this impressive even while not healthy, that's amazing to me. It also tells me that this defense has depth, even after they cut Blake Martinez and James Bradberry before the season, who were two of their best defensive players in 2020. And James Bradberry, even though he took a step back last year, he was still one of their better defensive players last year. Speaking of the secondary though, Darnay Holmes did struggle real badly in week 1 and even nearly cost the Giants the game, especially at the end when he got called for a holding penalty and then gave up a 21-yard reception. He didn't have a perfect game in week 2 either, but it was definitely a lot better than week 1. Adoree Jackson's been phenomenal up to this point, and maybe this will be another move that we can actually praise Dave Gettleman for. There aren't a lot of things we can praise him for, but maybe this will be one of them. When the Giants signed Adoree Jackson last year, I was especially excited for it because if you've been on this channel long enough, you should know that I am a USC football fan, and hey, they're also undefeated. Julian Love's been great too, also Cordell Flott. The secondary, especially at the cornerback position, which was supposed to be a position the Giants are thin at because they cut James Bradberry, and also Aaron Robinson being injured doesn't help. These guys have really stepped it up, and we have to tip our hat to Wink Martindale for his aggressive schemes and sending these guys on some blitzes to really throw off Baker Mayfield, and also giving his players confidence. Confidence goes a long way, and it is something that the Entertainer Talking Sports talked about in his recap, and he's absolutely right. So hey, next week, hopefully the Giants will be 3-0, definitely doable. Hopefully the Giants offensive line can at least contain the Cowboys pass rush, which absolutely decimated the Bengals in week 2. Then next the Bears, but hey, we got to take it one game at a time. But just thinking about the fact that this team can actually go 4-0 to start the season after all the hell we've been through the last 5 years, it's a great feeling. Of course, this team is far from a contender, but just the fact that there is a feel for a winning culture back with the Giants, that puts a huge smile on my face, and I know that other Giants fans watching this can definitely agree with that. Even though the Giants are winning and the culture looks a lot different, like I've said in this video, there are still things the Giants need to work on. And another thing I haven't mentioned yet is their third down conversion rate. Week 1, just 2 for 10. Week 2, 6 for 18. At least 6 for 18 is a good batting average, unlike 2 for 10, but the Giants do still need to do better on third down. The offense also needs to start games better. They went scoreless in the first half of week 1, and they only scored 6 points in the first half of this game, both on Graham Gano field goals in the first quarter. The offense can really thank the defense for how this team has done in the first half of both games, but the offense does need to stay on the field longer. Both games, their opponents had better time of possession, and don't get me wrong, I'm ecstatic about winning. However, if this continues where the opposing team has more time of possession than the Giants do, it will wear out the defense. So the Giants will need to figure out how to stay on the field longer. But hey, Daniel Bellinger got his first touchdown in week 2, so welcome to the NFL. The Giants also do need to not out-penalize teams, which they have done in both of the first 2 games. However, a win is a win. Got 2 of them, haven't lost yet. I'm happy, but this team is definitely not flawless. Even though the third down offense hasn't been good, at least the third down defense has been very good, as they held the Titans to 3 for 11 in week 1 and the Panthers to 2 for 12. Well, I did already mention Graham Gano about kicking those field goals in the first quarter to put the Giants up 6-0. I really have to give him his flowers because if you know anything about football, you know that special teams can win or lose games, and special teams definitely made a big difference thanks to Graham Gano. He went 4 for 4, including that 56-yard game winner. The Giants don't win this game without Graham Gano. Also, the forced fumble on the opening kick, that was nice, and true, the Giants couldn't capitalize on that with a touchdown, but at least they got some points on the board, which were from Graham Gano. Was it the prettiest win by any means? No, however, it counts just like any other victory, and I'm happy about it, and I can see the confidence in these guys. I can see the fight in them, and these guys definitely want to play for Brian Dable and Wink Martindale. This team is definitely not the most talented team by any means, but they're leaving it all out on the field, and they're willing to go to war for this coaching staff. The difference between this year's team and last year's team, the way they go about their business, it's like night and day. So, Giants fans, let's enjoy being undefeated and being in first place while we still can, because we shouldn't expect it to last forever. Hopefully it does, but we shouldn't expect it. The Eagles are playing tomorrow as I'm recording this, and hopefully they'll lose, so go Vikings. That way the Giants really can be in sole possession of first place. If the Eagles do win though, I'm definitely not cutting this out, but hey, if you made it this far, if you could please consider liking the video, it helps out huge. Please consider subscribing and turning on the notification bell so you don't miss another video. Also, links to my social media are down below. I do other sports on here too, and next video, unless something else comes up, I want to talk about Aaron Judge's MVP case. Like, I don't know how this is even remotely a debate. Just give the man the MVP right now. It should be unanimous, period. Also, Aaron Judge is the only judge in New York that we approve of. Also, if you want to click either of these videos up above, I'm sure you'll enjoy one or the other. Really appreciate that. So, hey, thank you so much for watching. Go Giants. See you next time. Peace out.